Everyone, I'm Josh. I am a 40-year-old. As I've told people, turning 41. It's my freaking birthday on the day of Stranded. Science teacher from the Philadelphia area, father of two kids, and I am a survivor and all social strategy game super fan. So I've been teaching middle school science I just finished my 18th year. And I don't, probably after about 3 or 4 years, I just had this idea to take the DJ Khaled song, All I Do Is Win, and rewrite it about the cell organelles. And from there, birthed the character DJ Goodies. Some of my college friends called me Goodies. And I actually have a jersey, an Orioles jersey that says Mr. Goodies that was given to me as a wedding gift from some of my closest friends. My wife has a Mrs. Goodies one. And so I wear that jersey, and I've got probably like 10 to 15 songs now. And it's all parodies of popular rap songs. This year I did a couple new ones. Almost all of them are rap, but I did Hot Oh No, which was hot to go, but about climate change. And then I also did a Not Like Us diss rap about all the other subjects. So it was like, dissing math and all that, the English and all that stuff. So yeah. We have Friday afternoon clubs at the middle school where I work, and I decided a couple years ago to try to get kids into Survivor. We watch a season, but I also try to bring in different aspects of the social strategy piece. So with middle schoolers and cliques and bullying and stuff, it's not a good idea to basically say, hey, let's vote out the kid you want to vote out. So we can't play like a full season of Survivor. But if I see a fun game either in Survivor or in another game, I will try to bring it in. So a couple of years ago when Jelinski had that the first episode of season 46 where he and Maria, and I forget who the third person was, like he basically failed to lie about having like which card he had. Like the next week I brought that in. I've done the blindfold and collar challenge before with kids picking up cones of specific colors. It's hilarious to watch the kids walking blindfolded around. And then this year we watched Token Chains. We've also had a chance to Zoom with a couple of actual survivors. Like I found out mid-season that went to the high school where I work. So she did like a half-hour Zoom with us, which was really cool. And the club grew from like 5 kids in the first year, and it's now the biggest club in the school. There's 20 plus kids who have joined on. So, my favorite season is David versus Goliath. I just think there's so many great characters in that season, and that was actually the first season we watched in Survivor Club. And the 3 episode arc where the Goliaths sort of turn it around on the Davids. There's the episode where Carl uses his idol nullifier, and I actually haven't seen that season in a couple years, so I forget exactly how the sequence goes. That gets Dan out, I know, but it ends with the 5+ hour challenge where Christian's talking to Jeff about whether he's ever had a Reuben sandwich, and Alec is like slowly fading from dehydration. I don't know. I just think that season is so funny and so compelling. And in fact, I've been watching kind of some highlight seasons with my own children who are 10 and 7, and we're just about to get to David vs. Goliath, and I'm really excited for them to see that. Favorite Survivor is tricky, but the person who I sort of look up to a lot, mainly because I see a lot of myself in them, is Adam Klein. I don't know that he's like the most compelling person that I've seen play, but his level of paranoia is appealing to me. I just think that if I were to ever go on the show, or when I play an LRG, like that's how I imagine myself. Although I'd like to think that I'm a little bit more socially adept, but in fact, that's the season that my kids and I are watching right now, and I always forget just how many sort of bungles he has along the way, and how close he is to getting voted out because people don't trust him. But I don't know. I even before the whole like I'd like to play this as an idol. From season 40, I've liked Adam. So I've now played two games. They're both Survivor style games, both one day. One was Survivor Rock Creek Park, which is in Washington D.C., and the other one is called Survivor DC. They're separate games. So the first one I played, Rock Creek, I was part of a pretty dominant tribe, and I we won like our first six challenges, and then but there was a swap, and I sort of got pegged by as a big target because I was doing a lot of the sort of finishing pieces, whether it was the math piece, the memory piece, the puzzle piece. So it was clear that I was pulling my weight pretty heavily, and I think what I learned from that was that I either needed to better manage my threat level or I needed to do a better job of getting the big threats together. Basically, pitching the we're not going to just let kind of almost the Tony strategy in season 40 of like we're not just going to let the quote goats get to the end, that we actually are going to get the big threats together and then we can attack each other at the end. But the goal should not be to get the biggest threat every round because, you know, if you're that person who's going to go in the next two rounds, keep me along. And then more recently, I played Survivor DC, and that was incredibly fun for me. My tribe was basically down seven, or we were down 8-6 at the merge because one of our members had fully flipped. So, and then it went 8-6, 8-5, 8-4, 8-3, 8-2, 8-1. So I'm the last member left of that. And it was terrifying and it was so much fun because there were these two guys, one of whom was the member of my tribe who flipped, and the other was the guy who was running the alliance on the other side who like said he was going to be working with me but clearly wasn't. And I just wanted to get rid of these guys. I was just like, no, like fuck this. Like I'm like I don't want to be manipulated this way. And I actually was able to sway opinions and get rid of both of them before I then went out at 7. And it was like an incredible amount of pride, despite the fact that I, you know, still was in 7th place. But one thing I've learned about myself is that I'm actually a lot more, I can be more like likable, and that I always thought I would just be like strategy, because that's what I like about these games. But I've actually been able to be pretty like good at forming relationships, and people have wanted to keep me around like personally, and I think that's why I actually made it a little farther in DC. I certainly was pitching strategy, but I find that I'm able to form bonds pretty quickly and convince people to work with me, and that wasn't something I necessarily anticipated going in. So no, my plan is to binge closer to the actual show. So I am behind right now, but I certainly will be well studied by the time I'm stepping in. I think my main prep was going to be to not just watch season 1, but study season 1. So, like, what are the strategies that are working? I have a feeling there will be people who are kind of in the LRG world. All I've seen of Stranded is I saw the very beginning of, I think, the first episode where there was a confessional for someone who's talking about, I know this person from this game and this person. So, like, my biggest fear is that there's going to be a lot of pre-existing relationships that I'm on the outside of. And I was thinking of trying to sort of like watch other games, but it felt a little overwhelming to just start watching random LRGs in the hopes of getting a sense of people I might or might not meet. So my main prep is to watch the entirety of season one, probably watch it more than one time and just like jot down thoughts, strategies, etc. Um, and then kind of keeping my puzzle memory, math skills up to snuff. I will. I think that what I what I see having done this twice, the path for me winning is I'm never gonna just like I'm not someone who sits back and lets other people make decisions for me. Like I that is just not my personality. I'm a teacher. I'm like constantly making decisions for other people as a teacher, and so um, I don't think I could play the fully under the radar game. What I do think I could do is do a better job of managing my threat level. And I think I did this a little bit better the second time I played a game versus the first time. So I think I know how to just go with the flow until I feel the need to sort of step out there. And I do think the strategy that works for me is sort of form tight bonds, find people who I actually want to work with and who want to work with me, and will legitimately do so for at least a while, and then play the we're not just gonna let easy kind of the easy people who haven't done much get to the end. We're going to get rid of them because rather than getting rid of the biggest threats, let's get rid of the people who are going to just take up seats at the final. And I really think that that can be an effective strategy. I mean, it's one that's absolutely worked in Survivor, and I think that I think that who knows, but in any game that I'm likely to play, I think I have a pretty good I think I will have a pretty good case at the end for winning because I think if I make it to the end, I will have done so with some targets on my back. So I'm not worried about making that argument. I'm worried about getting to the end. And I think the way to do so is to basically say, use me as a shield, use me as a vote, use me as a target, all those things. And kind of keep saying that until they've run out of rounds to get me out. I think if there's anyone I know, I would deny it and then secretly say, look, past history aside, we have to work together. Um, you may have voted me out, I may have voted you out, but I think that I've played an honorable enough game so far in the games that I've played that I haven't burned any bridges in that regard. I think anyone who's played with me would be willing to work with me. Um, and I also think that what I found is it's just vibes. Like I wouldn't have known had until I played for the first time. But you can just talk to someone for 5 minutes and say, this is someone I want to play with, or this is not someone that I'm going to get along well with, and that's different for different people. And I'm surprised by how quickly I can figure that out. And so I hope that in those conversations, in those vibes, I'll quickly figure out who my allies are going to be. And as much as I want to work with people who I have played with before, I also believe that there will be people there with prior relationships. And if I can figure that out, I want to exploit that. I want to both work with people who I have worked with and strategically separate other people who have worked together before. And that's something I've considered as well. I've certainly had that feeling before. In fact, I at my vote out in Survivor DC, I thought there was some chance I had pulled some people, and I tried to pull one of those moves where I actually stood up at tribal council and started to try to whisper to people. And when they refused to basically talk to me, I was just like, oh, okay, I kind of see where this is going. But that was when there was only 5 minutes between tribals, so I didn't have that 30 minutes to work. So I think the answer, I think that one of the biggest mistakes you can make is pretending that you're not in trouble when you know you are. And in fact, I think that that's one, I talked about Adam Klein's paranoia. I think that my paranoia allows me perhaps I feel like I'm in trouble when I'm not, but I certainly know I'm in trouble when I am. And I think that the first thing to do is for me, is to figure out who is a realistic other target. So that's step one. Who can I get this target off of me onto? And then step two is who's in interest is it in, or who can I convince people that it's in their best interest to get rid of that person instead of me? What argument am I making? So I think I'm pretty good at putting myself in other people's shoes. And even if I do think, hey, it might make sense to get me out, I can say, why might it also make sense to get this person out? Or what can I offer of myself? And so it's basically just shifting the target. And I think a lot of that shifting the target, as I've said, is going to be to basically say, let's get rid of someone who's going to be tough, whose people are going to want to drag along later. But I learned in my first season playing that I want to go scratching and clawing. Like I was too complacent and I went down too easy. And then the second time I played, I did not go down easy, and it was a lot more fun, even though it was devastating when I did. And so there's no question that, you know, pretending that, hey, maybe it'll work out is not the way to go. The way to go is you shift a target. I find that this is like, this should be obvious, but I'm really attracted to people who seem genuine, right? I feel like you can tell pretty quickly who, even in just meeting people and hearing their story, there's some people who just open up and who are just warm and approachable. And I feel like those are the allies that I tend to make. On the other hand, the people who I really struggle with are people who are arrogant. There's people who feel like, and I think I'm somewhat arrogant. You know, I've said that I think I'm going to be a big threat no matter when I play. I said that I'm really good at puzzles and mind games. And so I recognize that in myself. But I think that when I've had, quote, enemies in these games, it's people who I feel like are looking down their nose at me, or people who say, hey, I'm really good at this type of challenge and then fail in that type of challenge, or people who say, hey, I've got this in the bag. There was my number one nemesis on Survivor DC was someone who I feel like was just sort of like saying they would work with me, but then just really feeling like they were superior to me because they were in the majority alliance. And at their tribal council boot, I knew it was either them or me going out. It was either him or me, because he was pitching me and I was pitching him, and I was pretty confident that I had his tribe turning on him. And I was sitting next to him at the tribal, and I said, look, I think it's you or me. If you want to give me a third name right now, we can still try to do this. And this was at tribal council, because again, we had so little time. And he gave me kind of a little smirk and said, what's done is done. And like, that's who I'm not working with. And you know what? It was done. He was done. And it felt great. But like, that's the sort of, I don't want people who aren't even willing to entertain. Like, I'm willing to entertain working with anyone under any circumstances. If you think you're better, that's not my type of person. So adapt, great. My cat's name is Darwin. Love teaching evolution. We're gonna adapt right away. Chaos, also great. I teach middle schoolers. I thrive in chaos. That is literally what I do on a daily basis. Is just like enter the chaos and conquer it. I guess if my thought is like a lot of switching of yeah, if I had to guess, I would guess it would be a lot of switching of tribes, like a lot of swaps. That would be, I feel like that is less than ideal because I'm someone who likes forming longer term, strong relationships. But again, I think that I've proven myself to be, like, I've proven to myself that I'm more adaptable than I think I would have thought to be going into these games.
All right. Well, speaking of adapting amidst the chaos, it starts right now. The game has officially started, and I have a proposition for you. So
Okay.
listen in. I'm willing to give you information on season two's twists and turns. However, in order for that information, you will need to sacrifice your vote at the first tribal council that you attend.
Hmm.
So, just to recap, you can sacrifice your vote and go into the game with a lot of information, or do you want to keep your vote and go into the game completely blind? You have a minute to think about it. Just talk out loud. I just kind of want to know what your thought process is.
So my instant thought is, shoot, I didn't realize I was gonna be playing tonight. My instant thought is keep my vote. That I think that I would rather go in blind, but with the vote versus not having my vote and having more information. And then my second thought is there a way that I could lie and say I have my vote and still get the information? Um, and I'm really torn right now. I think that I information is so tempting because chaos, if I knew what the chaos is, that would be so great. And I also, the question is, could I rely on someone who did sacrifice their vote to give me that information, or would I just assume that they're lying to me? I feel like I've played with a lot of people who are first time LRG players, and I have not played with a lot of people who have played a lot. And I'm far more wary of trusting whatever they are to say to me. So I don't think I'm going to be able to trust what anyone else says. But for that reason, I also think I'm a danger in the first vote where I've never felt before. And I think I need my vote. And so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to hold on to my vote.
But you are going to keep your vote. All right. Cool. So, lucky for you, that was just a test.
Did I pass?
Well, whether you chose to risk or keep, nothing was going to happen. But
Okay.
still important because that test showed you, showed us, and showed the viewers. How do you react under pressure? And how do you make split-second game decisions? And how will that impact the game? And with that, will Josh survive being stranded? Only time will tell. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.